The nonprofit Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget suggests that $1.4 trillion can be saved just by reversing some of Biden's executive actions.
Hello and welcome to the DOGE and Maha News channel. My name is Chris. In today's video, we're going to react to some news from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget and also some information from the Congressional Budget Office. So let's go ahead and dive into this conversation. It should be pretty interesting.
President-elect Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, under the direction of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, isn't that just a great sentence in and of itself, is getting some advice on ways to cut spending. The nonprofit Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget suggests, boy, they're busy, suggests that $1.4 trillion can be saved just by reversing some of Biden's executive actions. Fox Business.
$1.4 trillion could be saved just by reversing Biden's executive actions. Wow, that's really significant. Let's see what they're going to talk about.
This is Hillary Hahn is at the White House with more. Hillary.
Hi, Tammy. Well, the Department of Government Efficiency through Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have a goal of $2 trillion in cuts. So these ideas from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget pretty much come close to that with their estimate of $1.4 trillion. Here's ways that they say they could save money by reversing some of President Biden's executive actions. By reversing the student loan handout, they could save up to $550 billion.
Reversing the student loan handout, they could save $550 billion. Now, I'm not even sure if they've given any of this money out. I thought that was stuck in the court system. I think the Supreme Court actually had put a stop to that and said it was not constitutional. So I'm curious about that. I don't think any of that money has actually been spent. You definitely want to reverse that executive action.
Reversing some healthcare executive actions, $385 billion.
So $385 billion could be saved by reversing some healthcare executive actions. I'm curious specifically what those are, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that from Vivek and Musk.
And reversing vehicle carbon emissions rules and SNAP food stamp program changes, that could save close to $300 billion. But ultimately, they need Congress to be on the same page. So Ramaswamy and Musk are going to Capitol Hill to meet with Republicans to try to get them on the same page, to work with them to help with their goal of cutting $2 trillion in federal spending.
I think having people that bring a business mindset, having been a small business owner, bringing that business mindset into Congress, looking at agencies, I think can be a very effective strategy.
I agree. I mean, the business mindset is such a contrast to the government mindset. The business mindset is all about, okay, how can we turn a profit? Maybe you launch a product and it flops. Well, you just cut it. You get rid of it. In the government, you launch an agency or some kind of action and it flops or it doesn't make a difference or it doesn't make an impact. You continue to spend money on it. And of course, in a business mindset, you know, you're always looking for ways to cut costs, to make things more efficient, to streamline things. In the government, you're not. You know, it's just basically status quo. This is how we've always done it. Yeah, we need a lot more paperwork. We need more regulations. It just seems to grow and become more and more cumbersome and more expensive to do the same services. So definitely there's opportunity to streamline services and to cut services that are no longer needed.
So having Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, both individuals who have started companies, grown companies, we're looking forward to working with both Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on making government both efficient and effective.
Most people spent Thanksgiving Day carving a turkey, but Vivek Ramaswamy spent Thanksgiving brushing up on ways to carve up the size of the government, posting this picture of some light beach reading, suggestions from the Congressional Budget Office on how to cut spending. The CBO in these reports warning that if we do nothing, quote, federal debt held by the public would rise to 110% of GDP at the end of 2032, reaching 185% of GDP by 2052. Wow. They say debt that is high and rising as a percentage of GDP could slow economic growth, raise interest payments to foreign holders of U.S. debt, and heighten the risk of a fiscal crisis. So not a lot of time to get this done. And the president-elect, Trump, has given DOGE until July 4th of 2026 to get these cuts in place. Musk says that's not going to be a problem because they're going to be using AI to help sort through where money is being wasted. Tammy?
Ooh, that should be really interesting. I'm really curious to see what this AI tool is going to look like. You know, what are the prompts that he's putting in there? Is he saying, hey, which government agency is wasting the most money? I'm curious what those prompts are into AI to determine where the waste is that can be easily cut.
Oh, boy, that sounds very exciting, doesn't it, Hillary? It's going to be a fun year for people like you and me.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, dear. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I thought immediately, Kara, that stating a number like $2 trillion, it's like monopoly money. Don't state a number because maybe it's $20 trillion. And you heard that they can get to 1.4 just by reversing these executive actions.
She's got a little bit of a point there. I mean, if the opportunity to cut is much more than $2 trillion, you know, I don't want Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to get to the $2 trillion mark and say, okay, we've done enough. We met our goal. I want them to keep going. I think they will. But if there's opportunity to cut $3 trillion or more, keep going.
What about the Department of Education as a whole? Trump says he wants to cut it. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, $300 million to progressive groups, at least, as an example. Planned Parenthood gets $50 million a year of taxpayer dollars. When you start looking at the details, it's really endless about how much we can cut, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's like the head of Argentina now, gone,
Yes.
cut. Let's do it. Because the government has a massive waste, fraud, and abuse problem. I should know. I worked for the government for almost 10 years. And we understand the Pentagon, they just failed their 7th audit. So I'm very glad that the best business minds of our time are actually in there doing things. And I think the best thing about DOGE so far is the transparency idea. So we now know, you've probably seen the tweets, grants for underwater basket weaving, grants for...
Yeah, the transparency issue is really good. I mean, I got on X just to follow DOGE, just to follow Musk, just to follow Vivek Ramaswamy, and it's really interesting to see some of the information that's coming out. I'm going to be watching the podcast that Musk and Ramaswamy do. I think they committed to like a weekly podcast to update the American people. So I'm really excited to follow this story. I'm curious to see what they can cut, what kind of wasteful spending that they're going to find. And I'm also curious about how they're going to use AI. You know, what prompts are they using? And can we continue to use those kind of tools going forward to keep our government streamlined?
for the study of random things that nobody actually cares about. That is where our money is going. You mentioned the Department of Education. Yeah, sure, really happy with cutting it. But look what happened in COVID when parents were actually given insight into what these schools were teaching. Transparency, sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think this is going to work. And monopoly money, the government's been playing with it for too long. So the gravy train's over, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Nicole, people get nervous when they hear about money being cut, let's say from medical situations, Social Security, and yet it's not, spending is one thing, but if you're spending on shrimps on a treadmill, it's money that's lost if you're really being efficient, where money is spent where it can do the most good. And that's true also when it comes to healthcare and well-being.
Right. So I was looking at the list where they were talking about cutting, and one was silly science projects. And I'm like, oh, that's probably some of my people. Let's talk.
Yeah, definitely silly science projects. But again, that's not a really big piece of the pie. That's some obvious wasteful spending where they're spending, maybe 100,000 here, 1.5 million there. So it's definitely wasteful spending, money that can go towards other causes. So they definitely need to cut it. But that's a small piece of the pie. The really big chunks of savings are going to come from like the Department of Education and just streamlining some of the other agencies like Social Security payments, Medicare, Medicaid. Continue paying what they're paying, but stop sending money or stop sending payments to people that are already dead, for example, or stop sending money to people that are on the do not pay list. There's a ton of that happening, and that needs to stop. Also, streamline the processes for cutting these checks as well. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity there to really make those agencies a lot more efficient without even cutting a single penny of payment to the American people that deserve it.
About that. So first of all, we have to know that the United States, we continue to dominance in higher education, and it is a huge economic advantage for the United States. That being said, the federal government in 2022, or those last numbers I saw, spent about $54 billion on university research and development. The HHS alone provided over 50% of that money. Now, year after year, mind you, I work for one of the largest academic centers here in the country, so these are my people. Year after year, the estimates are about 85% of research dollars go to waste. Not in the waste that people are just blowing money for not doing anything, but it's unpublished research. It's research that has bias or is not statistically significant, and so you can't really do anything with it. So I absolutely think
Busy
that
work.
the people who are now being
If you're doing real science and you have actual scientific curiosity, you're going to run into some research that doesn't produce results, or they produce results that are not statistically relevant or significant. So, you can't really publish papers because there's not really any findings there to publish. So that's going to happen, of course, as long as you're doing real science. But a lot of times, they probably find the results are opposite of what their political leanings are. And so in those cases, they also choose not to publish those papers. So in that case, that's a waste of money for sure.
Put into Make America Healthy Again are going to be looking at a lot of these grants and seeing what is necessary, what's actually going to do a benefit. Marty McCary and I worked on a lot of papers together. I know that he has a good research-oriented mind, Dr. Bhattacharya as well. So they're going to certainly be trimming the fat when it comes to some of this wasteful spending.
And that means money.
Marty McCary has been selected as the director of the FDA, and I shared a testimony that he did in front of a congressional roundtable in a previous video, and it sounds like he's going to be really focused on making sure that research is done on the right thing and not wasted on a bunch of these kind of nonsense silly, like they called silly research projects that often occur in other countries. Instead of researching the sexual habits of monkeys on cocaine in Bosnia, how come they're not researching chemicals that are being sprayed on our food here in America and how that's impacting American citizens and our health? That's the kind of thing I think he's going to be focused on, making sure that research money is spent wisely on things that actually improve our health.
Money that is spent is really going to get something done. I think we have to remember that. Joe.
This is an 80-20 issue, right? So if you're a Republican in Congress, do you really want to oppose cutting spending? Because a lot of Democrats will agree with that as well. People want their government to be run like their households. Don't spend what you don't have. Don't buy what you don't need. So this is something that is very exciting because on day one, we will see Donald Trump, I would imagine, reverse almost every Biden executive action. And if we could save billions upon billions of dollars without even Congress getting involved from the onset, that's going to give momentum where I think not one Republican is going to cross Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy on this, because they're going to get primaried and they're probably going to be out of government. Because remember, Congress is every 2 years, not every 6 like the Senate.
Well, and we are, I think.
I really think that's interesting too, because if you're a Democrat and you just hate Trump, you're an anti-Trumper, or even a Republican that's an anti-Trumper. I mean, how can you be against government efficiency? How can you be against government wasteful spending? But there's going to be congressmen and women that are going to fight this tooth and nail, and they are just going to put up a big stink and say that DOGE is going to be cutting, money that's going to Medicare recipients. They want to kill grandma and they want to kill people with disabilities and all this nonsense. And that's just ridiculous, but they're really going to keep pushing that narrative. And that's why I'm going to really follow these stories really closely, because I want to make sure that they're cutting inappropriate areas, right? I don't want them to be cutting money from senior citizens and things like that. I want to make sure that they get even more if possible. Or what about veterans? Veterans should be getting more money as well. And so there's opportunity to streamline the processes within these government agencies and even give the American people more money and still save the government money overall. So there's definitely plenty of opportunity here, but it's going to be a battle in Congress, that is for sure.
Molly, at a point where the spending and the debt and the interest on the debt, and Elon keeps saying we're heading toward bankruptcy, and then everything begins to collapse. Isn't that kind of motivation in and of itself?
Yeah, well, Musk and Ramaswamy have talked about their North Star in this project being the U.S. Constitution. So I think it's smart that they're going to Washington, going to Congress, talking to the people that are going to be moving those dollars around. Kerry, you've talked a lot about the international amount of money we're sending overseas in the course of the conversation we've had thus far in the show. That's something they'll be looking at, but also the transparency issue. So as they move forward with this project and they're talking about what they're doing and what they're cutting, the American people will be able to have a voice in that and say, we don't want that cut. And that could change potentially elections down the road. But the people in those seats will have a say and be able to help in this. In Iowa, Joni Ernst is going to be forming the new Senate DOGE caucus. So there are some leaders out there that are already going to be working on this.
Good. And I think
You know, and I think that's a great point. I think when we see what Musk and Ramaswamy are recommending and what Trump is implementing, as well as all of the people in his cabinet and the changes that they're pushing and implementing, we can definitely see, okay, hey, that's a really good cut. That makes sense. That's going to save us money. Ooh, that cut right there, that is not a good cut. We don't want that. We can give pushback. We can respond on X and really give our thoughts on that and really push back, and maybe they'll change their minds on things. So that's a great opportunity for all of us to be involved in these processes, keep an eye on what is really happening, and then be able to give our feedback in almost real time on places like X.
it's about translating this idea that spending more money doesn't mean better, right? It's about being efficient. You know, the Department of Government Efficiency, it's not about just cutting it down. All right. Excellent. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Well, I thought that was definitely an interesting conversation. One thing that they talked about was that Trump could potentially save $1.4 trillion just by reversing Biden's executive actions. And one thing that makes me a little bit nervous is what's going to happen when another Democrat president comes in, whether that's 4 years from now, 8 years, 12 years from now, and they come in and just issue all of these executive actions to reverse a lot of this, to spend a lot of money. So we definitely need to put some measures in place to prevent that from happening. And that's going to be up to like Congress. They're going to have to put laws into place that will enable them to block executive actions that are going to spend a bunch of money without being authorized by Congress, because Congress needs to authorize this stuff. So hopefully they'll put something in place to prevent that from happening down the road. Maybe something that says, you know, the executive branch cannot do an executive action that is going to require spending without a bill that is approved by the Congress, you know, something like that, right? So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I am excited to see what DOGE can do and what Trump does with his executive actions, especially in the first 10, 20, 30 days. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think there's going to be definitely a lot of reports coming out, and I'm going to bring all of those reports to you. So if you want to follow this DOGE story, if you're as excited about the Department of Government Efficiency as I am, you're going to want to make sure you like this video, you subscribe to this channel, you hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video, which is every single day. And if you want to watch more of my videos about DOGE, I do have a playlist, so you can always check it out right here. Check out the DOGE playlist. Yeah, and finally, I just want to say thanks a lot for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.